Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really harrowing primary source, a record of the first 7 days of a galactic war. We're going to break down the timeline of some truly impossible choices that were made when a whole civilization was pushed right to the brink.
The source text opens with this single, chilling line, and it just sets the tone so perfectly. This isn't some calculated invasion, right? It's a sudden, overwhelming sickness that nobody was ready for. It's an illness that just spreads like wildfire and consumes everything in its path.
So we're not starting at the beginning, no. Our account drops us right into the middle of the chaos, after a major hub called Meridian has already fallen. There are no relief fleets on the way. There's no secret superweapon waiting in the wings. This record is all about what happens when the only thing left is the will to survive, one brutal day at a time.
Okay, let's dive in. We're starting on day 4 in a place called Lothora. This is when the true nature of the enemy becomes horrifyingly, terrifyingly clear.
Think about this for a second. The attack doesn't start with a bomb or a laser. It starts with silence. The sky, which was once filled with the sounds of these creatures, suddenly starts raining down their shattered, crystallized bodies. It's an act of pure psychological terror.
And as total chaos erupts, these mysterious prism troops just appear. They materialize out of what the text calls mathematical wounds in the air. What a description, right? And in the middle of it all is Security Chief Vordia. He's exhausted, but he gets it immediately and starts a desperate evacuation.
And here it is. This is the theme we're going to see again and again. Vordia doesn't hesitate for a second. He runs towards the danger, not away. His sacrifice is instant, it's absolute, and he becomes, in the words of the text, a monument to duty, completely frozen in glass.
And this theme, this idea of personal sacrifice, well, it becomes a brutal repeating pattern on days 5 and 6.
So on day 5, we shift over to the Northern Harbor, and here we meet Khor Then. Now this woman is a 40-year veteran of disaster management. You'd think she's seen it all, but she has never, ever seen anything like this. She's trying to get 200,000 people onto ships, while these enemy fold commanders are descending from the sky. I mean, the pressure is just unimaginable.
And just as an enemy weapon fires right on her position, what's her last act? It's not fear, it's not panic, it's a command. She's still doing her job, right to the very end, making sure one more ship with 2,000 more souls gets away.
So just like Vordia, her death becomes a symbol. She's frozen right there at her post, a statue of pure professionalism. Her duty didn't end until her very last breath. This is the price of survival.
Then comes day 6, and the fight moves to this narrow mountain pass. This is literally the last chance for 20,000 refugees who couldn't get out earlier. And who's defending them? Commander Vorlis and his tiny force of just 30 warriors. They have to hold off 500 of these prism troops. I mean, the odds aren't just bad, they're completely impossible.
As his own body starts to crystallize from a weapon hit, his command just echoes through that pass. It's not a suggestion, it's the only thing keeping 20,000 people alive. It is a lifeline made of sheer willpower.
And somehow they do it. They hold the line. Vorlis and every single one of his soldiers fall, but not before every last vehicle gets through. 20,000 people survived that day because of a handful of warriors whose names they would never know, but whose actions would outlive them all.
But on that very same day, far away from all the fighting and the chaos, in the quiet of a research complex, the first tiny glimmer of hope finally appears.
After 18 hours of non-stop work, a junior resident named Calvani has a breakthrough. She finds a weakness. These things aren't invincible after all. For the first time in 6 days, the text tells us, somebody actually smiled. This one discovery, it changes everything.
This newfound vulnerability just lights a fire under everyone. They have a potential weapon now, but to build it, they need the one thing they absolutely don't have: time.
So now we go to high orbit. Commander Asaten and her fleet of 50 warships are facing 3 massive enemy vessels they call cathedral forms. The numbers, as the source says, are just cruel. But the mission isn't to win. The mission is to make the enemy bleed for every single minute they can give the evacuations down on the planet.
Facing what the text calls an erasure weapon, which sounds even worse than the crystallizing beams, Atesan's final act is just one of pure, raw defiance. She knows she's lost, but she's going to make it count, firing her main cannons in her last possible second.
And her shot connects. It cripples one of those massive enemy ships. But the cost is total. She and her entire crew are crystallized instantly. A Pyrrhic victory for sure, but one that bought precious, vital time.
And this brings us to the final, grim accounting. The butcher's bill for the week.
Just look at these numbers. You can see the steady, horrific climb on days 4, 5, and 6, but then look at day 7. Over 1.8 million casualties. That massive spike, that's the brutal truth of that battle in orbit. That's what Odysseus' forces bought, but it's also what was lost when 3 entire population centers were wiped out in the process.
So faced with this data, the leadership, led by Elder Talryon, comes up with this desperate two-pronged strategy. Plan A is a Hail Mary, pour every single resource they have into finishing the new weapon based on Kelvani's discovery. And Plan B is to prepare to abandon the entire planet. One final hope and one final retreat.
And the source text ends with this absolutely terrifying image. After all the sacrifice, all the horror of this first week, it reminds us this was only the beginning. The main enemy fleet hadn't even arrived yet.
Ultimately, this account isn't just about a fictional war. It forces us to confront this timeless question about sacrifice, about heroism, and the real price of hope when you're facing impossible odds. When survival is bought with millions of lives, what is its true cost? It's a question these 7 days just leave hanging in the air for us to answer.